Welcome to our rainbow series. Oh, darn, you can't even see it. This is really cool because this is like a bunch of fractal patterns. All right, the fractal universe we live in. But welcome to our rainbow series, Unstoppable in 2023. We call it the rainbow series because we are actually going into our energetic elements that we call the chakras. Within every chakra is a shadow. Within every chakra is a grace. And when we are navigating this life, when we navigate through our shadow, we seem to struggle more. And so we want, our goal, of course, is to discover the grace that is at work in each one of us. Now, as we are navigating through life, yeah, there, you can see some of it. That's awesome. Of course, I can't see any of my notes now. I guess I need a book light. I have a book light, so I can bring that next time. But as we're navigating through our life, it is important for us to look at conditions. It is. If you're driving down the road, you want to look at the conditions where you're driving through. If you're saving money to buy something, you want to look at the condition of your bank account so you know if you have to make any changes. But see, if we are navigating through our shadow as we go through life, we may get caught up in the conditions. We may look at our low bank account and think, wow, saving money is hard. I'll just never be able to do the things I want. Rather than thinking, observing, and saying to ourselves, well, maybe I need a budget or something. But see, when we're navigating by the conditions and we get stuck in the conditions, this is when we start limiting ourselves. Now, true empowerment, it comes from us learning to navigate life by navigating and managing our way of thinking and our way of acting and managing our shadows and our grace. Okay, so this is what the Rainbow Series is about in our chakras, what's in each of our chakras. So we can learn to navigate our life, but we also learn to become unstoppable. And we learn to be unstoppable by knowing our authentic divine self. And here is it worked. All right, this is our authentic divine self, who we are, whether we're using a body or not. Okay, this is our divine self. I know who I am, the divine expressing as me. I know what I am. I'm the demonstrator of that through my consciousness, through my awareness. I decide I'm going to express my divine self. I'm going to make choices that honor the divine at work through me rather than making choices that fail to honor the divine in me. I know how I serve. I stand in my truth, knowing that I'm the divine expressing as me. I demonstrate the truth by making those choices, and I witness the truth. So we're not just seeing it in ourselves, we're also seeing it in others. We stand in our truth, and this is what helps us get to know our authentic self. And we do this by studying the unity principles, or you can study the universal laws that the unity principles are all based on. Now, a principle or a law, they're constant, they're unchanging, and they're impersonal. They apply to everyone, everywhere, all the time. They're not here to hold us back. So the universal laws and the principles, they give us structure to live life with the most joy that we can live, right? They're not here to hold us back. They're here to empower us. So last week, I talked about the master law, the one law that rules all the other laws, the one law that rules all the unity principles. God is all things. The all is the all. And so today we're going to go into the first universal law, which is how it's put actually in the book, The Kabbalion. The universe is mental, right? But that, to me, that sounds really funny. Like, oh my gosh, did you see the weather today? The universe is so mental right now, right? But it's also put this way. We live in a universe of consciousness, right? Consciousness and volition. So the universe is not just the substance that everything comes from. It's not just the substance that each of us came from. It's also the volition to create. This is why we call God a creator. There's the substance and then the consciousness to choose to create. And that's how it's working through each of us, right? It is consciousness and volition working through each of us. So it continues to create through us, for us, as us. This is where the idea of we live and we move and we have our being in God. We live and we move and we have our being in a universe of consciousness. Now this is a really fun quote I just found. I only just heard of this guy, Erwin Schrödinger, like back when Big Bang Theory became popular TV show. But this man, he won the Nobel Prize for Physics in 1933. Back in 1933, almost 100 years ago, he was saying stuff like this. The number of minds in the universe is one. Just one. In fact, consciousness is a singularity phasing within all beings. So if you like science, there you go, there's some science. We live and move in phase within the divine consciousness of all. So our unity principles, God is all things, because God is all things, that also means us. Okay, so if God is all things, the reason that means us is because we're like what we come from, right? And so we create as our creator. We're created in the image and likeness because we come from God. So if God is all things, and that means us, that means we create as our creator, right? As the creator creates in the whole, we create in our own lives. So our third unity principle is, I am a co-creator with God. Okay, which we also say, I create my experience through my way of thinking and acting. That's how we're creating our experiences. But we're made from it. A universe of consciousness. We are made from it. Consciousness and volition, it is at work within each of us all the time, through us, for us, as us. Another thing that's important to know about this universe of ours is it doesn't create randomly. When we look at conditions, we start thinking that was really random. Why did that happen? I was thinking happy thoughts. Well, why did this crazy thing happen? But it does not create randomly. It creates with purpose and intention. And what I find interesting, and Taylor is actually the one that pointed this out to me, if you could take a microscope and look at everything, eventually it starts breaking down into fractals, right? These fractal patterns. And so there's nothing random. There's just nothing random about that. We were created with purpose and intention. Okay, so there's our principles we're talking about today. All right, this is from John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. This is a translation. Originally, Word was Logos. In the beginning was Logos. And Logos was with God, and Logos was God. Logos means God in action, the activity of God. God in action, the activity, the consciousness, the volition is working through all things, including us. But it doesn't just work through all things, it works as all things because it creates through its creations. So consider this. We live in an expansive universe. It's expansive. It's consciousness and volition. It creates by calling forth more of itself. Calls forth more of itself through its creations, and we are part of its creations. The reason it calls forth itself through its creations is to know itself more deeply, to know itself at a deeper level, to know more what it's capable of creating. And this is the reason that we are creators, because we learn to know ourselves more deeply. Think of an obstacle that you had to face, and what happened when you overcame that obstacle? You learned a little something about yourself. Maybe you learned you were a little more capable than what you imagined you were capable of. Okay, maybe you learned that you did have a little more potential than what you thought at first. So we learned something about ourselves when we are creating. And when I say creating, I don't mean art. I don't mean music, although that is creating. Creating is how we choose to show up in our life every day. Creating is deciding, I'm going to choose up today with my divine identity. I'm going to walk around in this life today knowing that God is all things, and that means me. And because I'm like what I come from, that means I'm also a creator in my life. As God creates in the universe, I create in my own life. That's creation. And that is what gives us solutions when there are obstacles to face. That is what gives us the strength and the fortitude to rise above something we can't change. That is creation. Okay, so the universe is mental. It's consciousness and it is volition. And we create our experience through our way of thinking and acting. Now, originally, the idea behind thinking, our reality into existence was just that, just thinking. I'll think my new reality into existence. Napoleon Hill wrote a book called Think and Grow Rich. Of course, in the book, if you read it, you have to do stuff too. You can't just think yourself into richness, right? But think about the things we say in unity, right? What you think about, you bring about. Change your thinking and you change your life. Energy flows where attention goes. We like to say all this stuff. But thinking, though it matters what we're thinking about, it's not necessarily creating our reality. So, example, last week I was really excited about this book that I was going to receive. I was getting it. It was delivered by Amazon. I don't know if you order from Amazon, but if you have a cell phone, it'll tell you constantly, 5 stops away, 3 stops away, we're in your house, Okay, so I was so excited. I was watching it get closer and closer. Well, then I see it pull up in front of my house, and the guy takes a package, and he runs across the street. My first thought was, even though I've never hardly had any problems with Amazon, my first thought is, he's giving my book to the lady across the street. That means I'm going to have to actually get dressed and go over there and fetch my book. Why is he giving my book to the lady across the street? Because he never does that. Amazon never pulls up in front of my house and delivers across the street. They go make a U-turn and they pull in front of that house. I watch this, right? I see this. My dog lets me know this is happening. But then he comes back to his truck and he pulls out another package and he brings me my book. What I was thinking, it did not create my reality. My feelings, however, did. Because at first I was all worked up and I was feeling it as if it were true, even though it wasn't true. I felt it as if it were true. Imagine that you want to make yourself dinner, right? You can't just think about it. You might imagine it in your head and decide where you want to go eat or what's in your kitchen that you can fix. But eventually there is some action that happens. Now, what's real interesting is in the last few decades, it's been discovered that our feelings have more to do with creating our experience than our thoughts do, okay? Think about my little Amazon adventure last week. My feelings, for a few minutes, they created my reality, right? And I was upset because in my imagination, my book was just gone, right? But it's, it wasn't true, thank heavens, right? But think about this. We have our thoughts, we decide things, okay? And then our feelings can get in the way of that. So for example, at the beginning of the year when we make our New Year's resolutions, we might decide, oh yeah, I'm going to become a 5 a.m. person every day, right? There's that book, The 5 a.m. Habit, right? Or The 5 a.m. Person or something. I get up at 5 a.m. and I can get my meditation done. Or maybe you're getting up at 5 a.m. to go work out. Or what, right? Whatever, right? You fill in the blank there. And at first it's exciting, right? You're doing this new thing. I'm getting up every day at 5 and then I'm going to meditate. But then around the middle of February, you wake up one day, your alarm goes off at 5, but you're thinking it's raining and it's cold and my bed is so comfortable. I think I'm just going to, I don't feel like getting up. And that's what happens. I don't feel like getting up. And so that's what we do. Now I will tell you, I come here and I work out, And as much as I love Nick and Taylor, as much as I love the people that work here, as much as I love many of the people that show up here, right? I get into the sauna with somebody and like get into this great conversation, right? I don't feel like coming down here. I don't feel like being sugar flour free. Sometimes, you know what, I usually, and this doesn't mean anything really, but sometimes I don't actually feel like working on my Sunday talk. Like I get excited about it when I'm thinking about it on Monday. I'm excited, but I don't feel like doing it. I don't feel like sitting down and writing. I don't feel like doing it. Now here's the thing. I know that I want to be here 3 days a week. I know I want to be sugar flour free. I know that I want to, that when I get into that my sermon's important to me, my talk is important to me. I know these things. Now, once I get down here, I feel good. You know, when I get through the day sugar flour free, then I feel good. You know, once I open up my notebook and start working on Sunday, I start feeling good right away. And I always know this about myself. I know the minute that I walk in here, I'm going to feel better. The minute I have my notebook open, I'm going to feel better. But still, I never feel like doing it, right? So our feelings have a lot to do with what we do next, okay? But it has been discovered also that when it comes to changing our identity, okay, it's not acting on feelings first. The most powerful directionality comes from actions to feelings. That is the most powerful way that we change, you know, into the person we want to show up as, is we take action first. Now we take action based on our thoughts, right? We don't want to let our feelings get in the way. Really, we want to think, I'm in my divine identity. I know who I am. I know what I am. I know how I serve, right? I'm the light expressing, you know, as me. And what I do next is based on that identity, not based on how I'm feeling in that minute. Okay, so this is the great power that we actually have. We're living in a conscious universe. There is this law of mind in action working through each of us. We are co-creators with all of this. It's not enough to feel it. We actually have to act with it, right? We take action and we act with it. Now, I will say there's a caveat to all this in our feelings, when it comes to our feelings. I'm talking about our feelings that we're using to get out of doing something that we actually want to do, right? To make our life better, right? To change how we show up in this world. I'm talking about those feelings we get when we don't feel like keeping our promise to ourselves, right? It's like, well, just today I'm going to skip everything. Just today I'm going to get up and have some cake for breakfast, right? Just today, right? That's how we feel, okay? But when we show up in our divine identity, right? God is all things, and that means me. We choose to honor that within us, and we take an action based on our divine self. And then we feel good about it later. Okay, we feel good because we kept a promise to ourselves. We feel good because we kept a resolution, or we acted in accordance with our divine self. So we have this great power within us. We have this power that allows us to show up in our lives no matter what's going on in our lives, no matter the conditions, no matter the things that, you know, could be holding us back. When we're choosing to remember that God is all things, and that means each of us, which means that we have to be co-creators too, because we're like what we come from. We just create in our life as God creates in the whole. We're creating through our word, through purpose, through intention, and through action. Remember, law, principle, it's constant, it's unchanging, it's impersonal. This is true about you all the time. This is true about you, whether you believe it or not. This is true about you, whether you feel like taking responsibility right in that minute to show up as your divine self. even if you feel like staying in bed and sleeping until 7, skipping your meditation, skipping your workout, eating whatever you want for that day, this is still true about you. Now, what happens when we fail to acknowledge this about ourselves, when we fail to acknowledge our own divine identity, that we are created in the image and likeness, right? We create the same as God, just in a smaller space. When we fail to acknowledge this, we start feeling this emptiness within us. We're going to start to feel this void within us that we can't seem to fill. And we're going to start reaching for things in our environment and needing things in the environment to change so we can be happy. And what happens is we're looking to the world to make us feel better. We're looking maybe to other people to make us feel better, or maybe things. And so when we fail to acknowledge this about ourselves, and we're feeling that emptiness and that void within us, and like we are lost and we just don't know what to do, we start creating through our shadow. Okay? Now the shadow of the second chakra is greed or avarice. And really what this just means is an extreme need for something more. An extreme need for this thing out there. I need another one. Okay, well, I thought this worked for a minute, but now I need another one. This is the shadow of addiction, right? The shadow of addiction. And we're really in a victim consciousness when this happens, when we are working through the shadow. And I say victim consciousness, it's not the same as being the victim of an event or a condition, right? You could be the victim of a car accident or the victim of, food poisoning. But you get to decide to not show up the rest of your life because of that incident, right? Victim consciousness is when we continue to feel controlled by something outside of us. We feel disempowered. So if we're in victim consciousness, we need something out in the world to help make us feel better so we can be happy, so we can find some kind of momentary peace or something that will help lessen our anxiety or distract us from the pain that we have that we just don't know how to cope with. So we keep seeking and reaching. And of course, that can look like food or drugs or drink. It can look like online shopping. It can look like, well, just 10 more minutes of video gaming and then I'll get to work on my thing. Right? And then that turns into 10 more minutes. Or it turns into, well, I got to buy one more thing off Amazon. Okay? But the grace of this chakra, the remedy, is piety, which is devotion to reverence. And of course, reverence is the grace of our first chakra. Reverence is recognizing that all of life comes from the all. And looking around at everything and recognizing that God is in all things, no matter what. This is reverence. And so piety, we devote ourselves to the practice of demonstrating reverence for all of life. We demonstrate our devotion and we demonstrate reverence through prayer. We pray for ourselves. We pray for others. We bless ourselves. We bless others. We have mercy for ourselves when we mess up and have some compassion. And we have mercy and compassion for others. We commit ourselves to a consistent practice of finding things to be grateful for, even though there may be things happening in the world that we don't like, and we don't want to have to think about it. We don't know how we can change it. So we find something to be grateful for now. We find something to be thankful for right now. So when we're embodying this grace, we're practicing seeing God in all things. We also practice seeing the activity of God in all things. The activity of God in all things means that, excuse me, let's get a little drink here. Black water is very healthy for you. They sell it here too. You should get some. Gives you vitamins and minerals and, yeah, okay. I guess you'd have to be a Gen Xer to get that one, huh? Or a baby boomer. Okay. But when we are looking at, so we're looking at God is all things, but we're also looking at all things are the activity of God. Because God is in motion. God is constantly expanding itself. The universe is constantly expanding through this consciousness and volition. So it's constantly at work, which means we can look at everything happening in our life as an act of creation. Everything, no matter what is going on, no matter the conditions, no matter if it's somebody you don't agree with, you don't like how they eat, vote, pray, or parent, the activity of God is still at work through them. When we stand in our true identity, I know who I am. I'm the light expressing as me. I know what I am. I'm the demonstrator of that. I choose to do that. I know how I serve. I stand in my truth. I demonstrate the truth. I witness the truth. Meaning I see God in all things, even when I don't agree with things. I still see God in all things. I'm seeing the activity of God in all things. Okay, remember, the universe does not create randomly, right? Everything is created with purpose and intention, even if we don't agree with it, right? No matter how somebody eats, votes, prays, or parents, there's still a path to God in that. There's still the activity of God at work in that. And so this is you. You are creating with purpose and intention. There's the path to God, or the path of expressing God, is at work in you. This also means when you stand in your divine truth, God is expanding through you, for you, as you. Think about what you call forth. You're calling forth your gifts and your talents, the things you love, the things you have passion for. You are calling that out into the world. When you see God as the everywhere present force that it is, and the everywhere active force that it is, the consciousness, the volition moving through all things, what happens is we will uphold our life as sacred. We'll uphold our gifts as sacred. But we'll also uphold the lives of others as sacred. Even when we don't agree with them, we'll still see their life as sacred because we know what's working through them, for them, and as them. So here is our call to action. Our affirmation. In divine consciousness, I live and move and have my being. Let's say that together. In divine consciousness, I live and move and have my being. I really, really believe with my whole heart that we are here on this planet right now to play. Our souls decided to come into a physical body to play. Now, it may not always feel like play, like sometimes things can be hard, okay, but our soul came here to have an experience, to experience itself more deeply, right? The Creator we are an extension of the Creator, so God is working through us, for us, as us, to know itself on a more deep level. And these unity principles, these universal laws, are the structure for us to play in this game. Right? If we obey the laws, if we abide by the laws, we have less struggle and we have more joy. Just like if you abide by the laws of the road, the rules of the road, you don't get so many tickets, right? A little more peace on the road. I found this, there's another quote here. Sorry, gosh. I love Alan Watts. He's really deep. But look at this. Man suffers only because he takes seriously what the gods made for fun. Okay, he's not saying, and I'm not saying, that terrible, tragic events that have happened on this planet are fun. Okay, we're not saying that. But we suffer when we are trying to change the conditions first. We suffer when we don't go into our divine identity first. We suffer when we forget that God is all things and that God is consciousness and volition, and it's at work in all things. We suffer and we go into our shadow and we start needing things to fill us up rather than the divine spirit that we are to fill us up. You live in a world of consciousness and volition. You create as your creator. This is the law. This is a universal law. It's always true about you. It's always true about you. So are you remembering your divine identity? Right? Are you identifying with limitation? Here's our call to action. Unstoppable in 2023. Are you doing your best with what you've got? Okay? Or do you need circumstances to change so then you can be happy? Right? I feel like we are doing great here right now. We are doing great, and I am really happy here. Doing our best with what we've got, it doesn't mean we're not deciding to grow, right? If maybe you dream of having a brick and mortar store, but right now you're building something out of your house. You're creating something out of your house. You do your best with what you've got because we live in a universe of consciousness and volition, and the universe is expansive. When you do your best with what you've got, that means you outgrow where you are. You outgrow your space. And so doing your best with what you got, it doesn't mean that, okay, that's it. Well, I've got $2,000 in my savings account. Well, I guess that's it. I'll just be happy with that. Right? No. Do your best with that $2,000 right now. And it will continue to expand. Okay? Are you identifying with limitation instead of claiming your I am? Do you think, well, I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm not educated enough, or I'm like, I don't know how to get started, or I'm tired, I feel like staying in bed today, right? What kind of limitation do we identify with rather than claiming our I am? How about, what do you fill the void with? What do you fill the void with when you're not claiming your I am and you're feeling that achiness? What do you fill that with? Okay, how are you expressing reverence for your life? How are you devoted to seeing God in all things, to seeing the activity of God as everywhere present, even in situations you don't like, even in the people that maybe you don't care for being around? How do you see the activity of God as everywhere present? Because you practice seeing that and solutions show up, right? Okay, remember we talked about resolutions. A resolution is not a goal. A resolution is an identity. We decide, I am going to be a person who works out. And it may not look like it for a couple of months, but you do what that person would do, right? If you want to be a writer, you decide, I am a writer. And you write every day because that's what a writer would do, right? If you want to paint, or if you want to be somebody who takes a walk twice a week, or if you want to create something with your hands, or if you want to read a book a week, right? Start doing what that person would do. If there's a person who reads a book every single week and has read 52 books at the end of the year, do what that person would do and read. Like, pick up the book and start reading. Claim your I am. What does unstoppable look like to you in 2023? How do you want to show up in 2023? Okay, the clock is ticking. Remember, I talked about most people give up on their New Year's resolutions in the middle of the second week of February, right? I think we're 2.5 weeks away from that right now. Most people who've had a dream, had something they cared about, had something that meant a lot to them, because they didn't understand they're creating a new identity and things feel hard and they're struggling, 2.5 weeks, these people are going to start giving up on that thing that mattered so much to them. Now, you live in a universe of consciousness and volition. Whatever it is that you desired, the means to make it so is available. You may be starting small, but the means to make it so is available right here and right now. You just have to remember who you are. You have to remember the force that put you here in this body, right? We're just remembering that. And that is how we create heaven on earth. So until next time, remember, you are designed to do all of this stuff. Everything you could possibly need is available to you because you're the hands and the heart of God walking around on this planet right now. In everything you do, you are blessed. And so it is.